My name is Leisha Walchman, and this is my case study reflection on Get This Child Out of My Room. I will first start off with a brief summary of the scenario. Miss Green is a first-year special education teacher who has taken over for a 25-year veteran teacher. She's working with Miss Taylor, who is a 10-year veteran teacher in a third-grade classroom. Miss Taylor is having a difficult time with Carl, who is a student diagnosed with a behavior disorder and who is currently on a behavior plan. The classroom teacher would prefer that Carl is removed from her classroom and states that the former special education teacher would have freely done that and have just put him on a workbook page when he was having an issue. Because they're in a rural area, they do need to be creative with admin coverage. The superintendent will go to different townships, one township each day of the week. When he or she is not there, there's a full-time classroom teacher who also serves as an assistant superintendent to do some administrative duties and to keep the superintendent informed. Unfortunately, there's also a lack of resources for Skylar because 16 different school districts share specialized services. We know that there's a lack of consistent administrative presence, although Ms. Green was able to reach out to the district's director of special education for some advice on the scenario. Carl, who is a student, has been diagnosed with a behavior disorder. His parents have recently gone through a very messy divorce, and there's still ill feelings between the parents. Carl's behavior has evolved from being self-abusive to more outwardly aggressive, which has been a cause for concern for the classroom teacher for her safety as well as the safety of her other students. Miss Taylor is very frustrated with Carl's behavior and would prefer that he's out of the classroom. But based on Miss Green's analysis of Carl's ability, she feels that his least restrictive environment is in the classroom with his peers. Due to Miss Taylor's frustration with the situation, she approached Miss Green, who went ahead and worked on adjusting the behavior plan for Carl to include removal from the classroom when his behavior is aggressive. The IEP meeting has been called. The parents signed off on the new plan. We also know that there are older siblings who are receiving services for emotional problems. The parents are frustrated. They don't know what to do. They're still upset about what's going on with them personally. And now they have this child who is struggling at school. The teachers, Miss Green and Miss Taylor, have differing views on how to work with Carl and support him in the classroom. And because it's been noted that Carl is larger in size, they feel that when removing him, Miss Green may need more support. What we need to know is, when was Carl put on this behavior plan? I know the former teacher for special education wrote the original IEP, or the one that they're currently working on, so I'm just curious, when did all this happen? Why is a plan that was agreed upon during the second week of school not working now that it's 4 weeks later? Does Carl's behavior escalate while in other classrooms with other teachers? Are there specific students that are triggering his reaction to things? Does Miss Taylor do things to trigger his behavior? And is there a pattern to his behavior? I'm curious if Carl receives counseling outside of school to help him with what's going on in the family. I'm curious to see what strategies will work to help Carl de-escalate. And is there someone at school that has a connection with Carl that can just be there when he needs someone to talk to? So we have this new IEP plan that the parents signed off on. It includes the removal of Carl, but what we need are clear action steps to carry out that IEP. We also have two teachers who have different points of view on how that looks, so we need to make sure that they are on the same page. My proposed plan of action is twofold. We need an immediate plan of action to carry out Carl's IEP, but we also need a long-term plan to make sure that the staff is successful. I would like to make sure that there's a staff member who can triage with Carl each morning. If he is meeting with someone that he cares for or has a connection with, he will eventually come to the point where he can confide in that person. So if Carl's having a bad day when he gets off the bus or when he's dropped off in the morning, he doesn't need to go right to the classroom. We need to work with him on talking about, hey, what's happened? What's going on? And make sure that he's ready to learn for the day. We need to identify strategies to help Carl when he is in a crisis and when he's throwing things across the room to help him de-escalate safely. We need to identify a staff member that can work with Carl on self-awareness techniques of what's going on, how is he currently feeling. If he feels that his rage is bubbling up, then it's time for a break, and he needs to be able to express that without throwing pencils across the room. And also just different coping strategies that will help him succeed in life as well. So we need to review that consequence reward component of Carl's plan. I don't know that consequences are appropriate in this situation. he is identified with a behavior disorder. So let's focus on how we can help him succeed, and let's celebrate those successes when we can with that reward. It wouldn't be a consequence, but if he does have a situation, then it's more of the action steps that we'll take to make sure he's successful. We need to make sure that the team works together to clearly identify what are those aggressive behaviors that warrant removal. It's not going to be just he yelled in class. What can you as a classroom teacher do to help him make sure that he can express his concerns and not get any worse behaviorally than that? So I think that we need to make sure that Miss Taylor isn't just sending him out of the room for every little incident. That's not going to help Carl at all. But we do want to make sure that all the students are safe. So if we are in a situation where he's very outwardly aggressive and the safety is a concern, then we need to have clearly outlined action steps to diffuse the situation. And Carl needs to be aware of that, because if he is in a heightened state emotionally, but he sees so-and-so who's going to come and help remove him from the situation, he needs to be prepared for that, so that he looks at it as, oh, they're protecting me, not, oh no, I'm in trouble. So we need to make sure that Carl and everyone else is safe. We need to validate his feelings and what's happening that triggered that, if he can express that. But we also need to, in that time, after he's de-escalated, talk about how he could appropriately express his emotions and his feelings, and what goals do we have for success that he can go back to the classroom and learn for the rest of the day. And I think that if he has had a situation at some point during the day, there needs to be a plan to make sure that somebody continues to check in on him. Because if he's having a bad day, then maybe we need something else in place for him. We need to go over the expectations of staff members for upholding the IEPs. You don't get to choose what bits and pieces you're going to use from the plan. It's a legal document, and all staff members need to be aware of their responsibilities with that document. I think it would be good to conduct some classroom observations. It would be great if the social worker or psychologist could do that. They could identify what's going well, what types of things seem to help Carl be successful in the classroom. But if they notice either patterns of behaviors or triggers, either tone of voice or individual students or the teachers that he's reacting to, then they can identify those triggers and we can work to proactively address that. I think that we need some kind of trauma-sensitive schools training. He is going through trauma, and as a staff, we need to be prepared to address that. He needs to feel safe first and foremost, because if he doesn't feel safe, he's not going to be able to learn. We need to expect and support collaboration between the classroom teacher and the special education teacher. There needs to be some kind of way that we're tracking Carl's behavior, so that every once in a while the two teachers and even the IEP team members can come together and reflect on the data so that we know what to do going forward. We also need to consider our communication to the parents. They're going through a traumatic experience. They're not handling it well. So we need to make sure that first and foremost, they trust us with Carl, and they know that we're doing whatever we can to make sure that he's successful at school. And we need to celebrate the successes with them. We need to let them know what's going well at school, because if he has a specific coping strategy or self-awareness technique that is working with him, they need to know about it so they can reinforce it at home as well. They also need to know when Carl is removed and why he was removed, because they might be able to shed some light on the situation. As we're resolving the issues at school, we need to first and foremost make sure that we are promoting the success of all students. In this situation, I feel like having a clear plan of attack when situations do arise, we're trying to be more proactive than reactive. And also by keeping Carl in the loop of what's going to happen, it won't be a surprise, and there will be that consistency, so he can rely on that when things aren't going well. We are making sure that Carl and others involved with the school are safe. We're working on coping strategies that Carl can continue to use outside of third grade. There's going to be communication between home and school, which is always good. We are making sure that there's someone that Carl can rely on at school. So if he is having a bad day, he needs to be able to talk about it, because if he can't talk about it and it's just bubbling up inside him, he's not going to be able to learn. Collaboration between teachers is key, because we're all bringing in our different expertise to the situation, and we're all growing from that. And with all of these in place, learning can take place. In debriefing the problem, what I was thinking was that Miss Green was a great hire. Even as a first-year teacher, she's showing her passion for the safety and the best of what her students need. She's concerned about meeting the needs of her students and what to how to do what's best. What needs to happen, though, is we need to coach her on how to have those tough conversations because she's advocating for her students with special needs, and sometimes that's tough to do with veteran classroom teachers. Miss Green is Carl's advocate at school, but I'm curious why it's taken a month to realize that there's a problem with Mrs. Taylor. Has Miss Green been in the classroom? Has she only seen Carl outside the classroom? What's going on there? I'm wondering if Carl's aggressive behavior is directly linked to what's happening at home. Who knows? The divorce has just recently happened, but who knows how long he's been exposed to his parents being upset with each other at home. And I feel like we need to come up with a way to keep both parents involved, but we probably need to do it with them separate. So we probably need to have some separate meetings because we want to be able to focus on what's best for Carl and not continue to dredge up the negative emotions that the parents are having toward each other. First and foremost, I'm feeling sad that we have a student in this situation. Divorce is tough. I went through it as an early kiddo or as a young child too, and it's not a good situation. So I definitely empathize for him in this situation and for the family. I am hopeful though because I feel Miss Green is going to advocate for Carl and make sure he's safe and make sure he's successful at school. So we just need to empower her to do so. I'm bummed that this tough situation is even worse because there's a lack of an administrator that has a positive, powerful vision about students all being able to learn. So when we have these two teachers who have differing points of view, I feel like without someone stepping in and intervening, it may get worse. First and foremost, I value Carl and his ability to learn and the fact that we need to provide him that learning situation or a positive environment so that he can do so. I'm valuing the fact that divorce is an emotional drain on all parties involved, and we need to be empathetic to that. I value collaboration because I feel like we're able to help each other grow professionally as a result of collaboration. I'm valuing problem solving. We're not going to have all the answers. We're going to have to be able to be open to trying different techniques to help Carl de-escalate his behavior. And we need some good professional development to make sure everyone's on the same page. And I value the fact that we need some kind of vision from a building administrator about all students can learn. So if you're not on the right bus, maybe this isn't for you. Some unresolved issues in this scenario would be the effect that the divorce is going to continue to have on the family. We don't know where that's going to take the family and how that's going to affect Carl. We need to make sure that we find strategies that work best to help de-escalate Carl and those self-awareness techniques to help him identify when things aren't going well. We have got to figure out Miss Taylor's mindset about this situation and work with her to have more of a growth mindset around it. The relationship of Miss Taylor and Miss Green right now is not the best, so how can we work so that they are on the same page and that they are both concerned for Carl? The lack of an administrative presence and even the support from specialized people like our nurses and our social worker and our psychologists, that's definitely an issue that we need to work to resolve, which is going to be difficult in this situation. As far as the standard itself, I feel like we are promoting the academic success of every student by making sure that everyone is in a safe learning environment. When Carl does have an issue with behavior, we're going to have to work with him, make sure that if it's aggressive, that he is removed so that the students are safe. But as soon as he is ready to learn, he is back in the classroom with his peers. We need to set feelings aside so that we implement a plan that's best for Carl. We need to make sure that there's lots of collaboration and communication between all stakeholders to make sure that we always are doing what's best for Carl. And if things change, everyone needs to be aware of that. We need to analyze the effectiveness on the plan on a regular basis. And I feel like those observations, those classroom observations will pinpoint some areas of growth for the teacher. And first and foremost, if we have that plan outlined, we're going to have consistency so everyone can know what to expect when. Thank you very much.